How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Hopefully everyone's having a lovely day. So the Cincinnati Bengals, in the midst of the offseason here, in the midst of a very interesting time for the Cincinnati Bengals. You got some Burrow, you got T. Higgins, you got Jamar Chase, Wilson. You got a lot of guys that are due to be paid some handsome money here in the next year or two. And that, without a doubt, brings the question up across the league, across the nation. Is this going to be the Bengals' year? The Bengals' best chance at winning a Super Bowl? Because once you pay that quarterback, things get to be a lot more difficult. You're not going to get T. Higgins and Chase for the price you're getting them now. You're probably going to wrap $50 million in both of them if you want to keep them both. At least $50 million. Probably 55. Probably 55, possibly 60. And you might be throwing at Joe Burrow too. You know, you're talking $120 million wrapped into 3 players. Nonetheless, the question then becomes, is this the Bengals' best chance to win a Super Bowl? And I think there's a couple ways you have to really look at this. First of all, as long as Joe Burrow is a quarterback of this football team, they're a Super Bowl contender year in and year out, I think. There's no question about that. But from a pure probability standpoint of saying, hey, what are the Bengals' odds walking right now? They're 5th favorite according to DraftKings Sportsbook. They're 5th favorite team to win a Super Bowl this year. But what are their odds? Is it going to get better than that in the future? Or is the odds of, this is the Bengals' best chance of winning with the team they have now, the coaching staff they have now, does it get any better than this? I really question it. I think they're a team you walk into every single season and say, hey, they're a team that can win the Super Bowl. They're a team I believe can win the Super Bowl. They're a legit contender every year. But if there's one year you look back and say, man, is there one year they got to get it done? And one year they should be able to get it done. It's 2023. There's a couple things, not just, Chase, Higgins, Burrow trying to keep this group intact. I think from that perspective, that don't worry me. I know there's a lot of worry. There's a lot of concern like, oh, what's Burrow going to do without these weapons? The best quarterbacks in the league, the elite quarterbacks, the Hall of Fame quarterbacks in this football league, they don't need that kind of weaponry to do damage if they have an offensive line. That's the thing. Let's not pretend Tom Brady or Peyton Manning was ripping balls to Austin Collie and Pierre Garcon without an offensive line. They was doing it. They was tearing teams apart. They had an offensive line now. Patrick Mahomes, same story. And, let's not pretend he ain't standing back there longer than anybody else in the league right now with just Travis Kelce, which is not that's best tight end in the league possibly ever. With Travis Kelce and company, that's the thing. And I think Burrow, from that perspective, he'll be all right. Where I'm concerned, or I'm really concerned, it's this defense. This is a championship caliber defense. They play championship football. They make the big stops when they have to. They make the big takeaways when they need to. And they keep their football team in games. That's tough to come by. And I think a big part of that is Lou Anarumo. And you have to believe if the Bengals are to go to the AFC Championship, the Bengals will win a Super Bowl this year. If the Bengals have a really good season, the defense plays well, Joe Burrow lights it up, that Lou Anarumo will probably get his chance to be a head coach somewhere. And that's where you get concerned. That's where I get concerned. Because I look at this Bengals defense and say, now there's not it's not a star-studded defense. It's a bunch of solid players. There's some above average players. There's some really good players. But there's nobody you look at that defense and say, there's no Von Miller. There's no Khalil Mack. There's no, there's none of these. There's no Bosa on the defense. They don't have those kind of players. They have a bunch of guys that gel well. They have a bunch of guys that play well together. And that has a lot to do with the coaching staff. That has a lot to do with what Lou's doing with this team, the chemistry. They schemed up a team that plays really well together. And they've been shining. And that's what worries me. As I say, can the Bengals afford to keep what they have on defense? I mean, I think they've been all right. They've proven that. But the question is, can they find the right coach to slide in? That's a lot tougher than what it seems. Because, again, Zach Taylor is not a defensive coordinator. He's not a defensive coach. He's an offensive-minded head coach. So you need to have that complement on defense like Lou that makes this duo so dynamic. And that's where I look. I look and say, looking at this Bengals future, is 2023 their best chance of winning? Are they the New Orleans Saints? Or are they the New England Patriots? And when I say the New Orleans Saints, I mean, are we going to go out here and have to score 40 points every game? Is the defense going to fall apart after they win a Super Bowl? They had that 1 year and it's like, what happens? Or you look at the Patriots and say a big reason they won them Super Bowls. They had the Joe Burrow of our era in their era. You know, they had that, and then they had a really good defense that clamped teams down. Because once the playoffs come around, that defense makes a big difference. You give up 38 points, you score 35 like the Eagles did. You expect that defense plays better and locks down Mahomes, you win the Super Bowl. That's the difference. The Chiefs defense had holes. They still wanted to outscore an opponent, but that does not happen every year. So from that perspective, you see the Bengals got a really good complete team here right now. And if things gel offensively with that offensive line, with that, you know, that situation, you have to believe this may well be Joe Burrow's best chance at winning a Super Bowl. I think he wins multiple, but if there's 1 year where you walk into it with confidence and say there's 1 year that this team's put together best that possibly can be to win a Super Bowl, you would think that's entering this season personally. We'll see. Love you guys' thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.